Okay, great. Um, the stream is likely transferred over. If you're on YouTube, let me know when you can hear us. Um, there's the agenda, issue 135. Um, general similar structure, and we're going to have a little bit more in-depth conversation about multi-client testnets. Afri's here, who's been digging around and thinking about this, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Okay, so we have a release in the queue. I anticipate that it will go out today. This has some continued networking updates that we've been working through the past about 10 days. It also has a fix for two critical bugs, one in testing and one in the rewards calculations. A rewards was set to equal instead of plus equal. So, which also highlights both of them highlighted that it's likely valuable to split the attestation deltas function into some sub-functions for more granular testing, because it's very difficult to capture much other than whether the values are going up or down. But if you mess up a calculation in the middle with respect to testing, it's easy to throw off the whole function and not really realize it. Cool. So that's coming. This release, because of the critical bugs in the previous one, I'm going to go ahead and say use this as your target. That's very, especially with respect to the state transition, very minor. I hope y'all are having a good time working through V011. I'm sure you'll let us know in a minute. Other updates on testing and release.
Yep, got a Beacon Fuzz update.
Great.
So we've been working on the Java integration, which is pretty much done. We got the shuffling up and running. We just need a way to disable signature verification on Teku. I'm sure that'll come very, very soon. We're revamping the architecture completely. We're actually considering rewriting the differential fuzzer in Rust. So we want to have the ability to swap between different fuzzing engines. So we currently only use LeafFuzzer, but we want to be able to have a CLI that allows us to swap to AFL, HonkFuzz, Lane, and potentially others. So they all use different mutation algos, and it'll be good to experiment with all of them. We're building out our coverage reporting to better measure the efficiency of the structural fuzzing, which is coming together. We're prototyping new fuzzers using Lighthouse first, and we're hoping to have a lot more progress to share with you folks in 2 weeks. And very excited to announce that we're onboarding a new person to the project, Patrick, who's a WASM security fuzzing expert who started working with us. We'll have him look into Eth2 and all the different implementations. He's already started on Monday. We also found a minor type error in PyZZ, which is not exploitable, or at least not directly exploitable, but we'll make sure to report it. And that's it.
Great, thanks, buddy. Proto, anything on your end? Sorry, anything on your end, Proto?
So, slow but steady progress on network testing. As Rumor is evolving, so like introduce more features, we are starting to get a good interface in the Python wrapper PyRoom to interface and use Rumor for sync tests. As a proof of concept, we have synced the first 10,000 blocks of the Lighthouse testnet with the specification tooling. And so with all this tooling, we'll have sync tests pretty soon.
Great, thanks, Proto. Other updates? Okay, let's move on to client updates. Let's start with Teku.
Hi everyone, this is Jem from Teku. So we have optimized the remarkable backing views so that the epoch transition is now like 4 times as fast as what we had before. We're now sitting at about 300 milliseconds per epoch transition for 32,000 validators with the mainnet config. We added a mode where we prune finalized state as a quick fix to keep storage from growing like crazy while we test syncing. And we started but not completed work to replace MapDB with RocksDB. RocksDB is out of the box a bit faster than MapDB, so we're expecting a speed up from this regards to that. Our Disk V5 implementation seems to be working well in Lighthouse Testnet 5. And we're working on splitting out a separate validator client. The REST APIs are continuing to improve, and we're hearing that like standardization of APIs would be really useful. So we're keen for that, and we're hoping to find someone with time and effort to like coordinate that. And lastly, we're working on a standalone signing service with support for loading keys from a hardware security module. So that's about it.
Nice. Are y'all able to stand up a local testnet right now? With just Teku?
Local testnet?
Or just not a public testnet? Have y'all reached that milestone?
Yeah, we should be. We should be able to do that. Yeah.
Cool. Just curious. Thank you. Prism.
Yeah, hey guys, Terrence from Prismatic Labs. So we're basically just working on version 11, and then with the biggest feature, which is the dynamic attestation subnet. The feature that is complete right now, so we just need extensive testing and ironing out a few bugs here and there. And on top of that, we have a slasher running in production, catching slashable offense, and we cut our first external validator double vote last Friday, and verified that external validator was slashed. So that was pretty exciting. We added continuous fuzz testing as part of our CI pipeline. We have 7 fuzz targets right now, which are tested with coverage-based random inputs. We also made a lot of radical improvements on the advanced DB configuration. So we have a wrapper service on top of our state DB to maintain both of hot and cold accessible state. And we will start extensive testing on that later this week. We did really good work on separate out initial sync block fetching from block processing. We refactor initial sync service and then introduce a concurrent model of syncing. So meaning the blocks are processed as they are being fetched. And that's it from me.
Great. Thanks, Terrence, and congrats on catching the slashing in production. Nimbus.
It's Zafari from Nimbus team. We've continued our work on the Discovery V5 implementation, and we're currently interoperating well with the Go implementation and the Lighthouse testnet. We are able to discover like 130 nodes there. We've completely dropped the Go daemon from our development branches now, and we've launched finalizing testnet based on libp2p. But the stabilization efforts are still underway. We are hunting down some resource leaks we are seeing in this testnet. We've synced with the latest spec, .11, but we are still have some pending work on the networking changes, like Snappy or similar items. We've reused the JSON RPC library we have from our Ethereum 1 client and integrated it in the Beacon node. So it now supports some of the RPC endpoints that are supported by Lighthouse, for example. We are currently looking and trying to fix the scripts in the multinet repo, so we can do local testing with all the clients. Hopefully, maybe some of the other teams will be interested in this as well, and we can bring these scripts up to date. We've done some work on syncing, and currently syncing is working in the libp2p testnet, but there will be more ongoing work in making the algorithm smarter and load balancing the request in a more appropriate way. And finally, we've been upgrading our compiler to NIM 1.2, which will be out in the next few days.
Great. Thank you. Lodestar.
Hey, so we are just finishing up the C5 implementation. We need to integrate it and do a few more tests, but it's looking good. We've been spiffing up our 2-node local testnet, just fixing some various things. We noticed we had a bug in our gossip validation, and we've been just fixing up our API for that. And we've been working now on spec updates. And we got a new contributor recently who is helping us out with our web apps. He's going to be updating simpleserialize.com, and he recently is working on an ETH2 validator key generator web app, and that's nearing completion too.
Cool. Thank you, Cameron. Lighthouse.
Hello. So this fortnight we've been focusing on implementing spec version 11. So the majority of the work has been around getting the attestation aggregation scheme working, mainly from a networking side. So Adrian has been working on that a lot, along with Pawan and Diva. So Adrian, those people have put some new search routines in for this v5 to assist with peer discovery. They sped up this v5 queries by adding timeouts. And been thinking a lot about handling forks in the networking stack. Michael has been working on implementing the state transition side of things. He found that add assign bug, which was pretty cool, so good on him. We've been fiddling with the API a fair bit, trying to, between the validator client and the beacon node, just as we implement, we figure out better ways we can do things. We've been working with Afri, who has been playing with some of our testnet deployment tools, which is kind of the first time that we've had anyone use them except for the authors. So that's been really helpful. We've been submitting lots of really good issues. We did some more optimization stuff around batch verification of blocks. Yeah, that's about it from us.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Trinity.
Everyone. Nothing too crazy other than kind of the stuff everyone else has been working on. We've been working to pull out a separate validator client, so that work has pretty much come to completion, which is exciting to see. Otherwise, just work on node stability and the V11 spec updates, along with some infrastructure work for single client testnets.
Great, thanks, Alex. Nethermind. Do we have anyone from Nethermind today? Don't think so. Okay, cool. Something else that I meant to announce earlier is that with this next spec update, we're going to be relaunching a Phase 0 pre-launch bug bounty program. So get some details on that out soon. Okay, I got everyone, right? Great. Any research updates?
Yeah, maybe I should give an update
great,
since I haven't. Yeah. Right. So hi everyone. Yeah. So we at Tauntaun Verification, we have been working on generalizing the Casper model to support dynamic validators, and we have done that. So we have what we have right now is a model of Casper as given in the Gasper paper. So so the model has proofs of accountable safety and plausible liveness. We use for assuming K finalization and dynamic validators. And what we are working right now on is on showing the bound given by the theorem in that paper. This is also in addition to the second model in K. So the K model is an abstraction of the beacon chain transition function, state transition function, and that K model does actually both fixed validator sets and dynamic validator sets, and it also includes partial refinement proofs showing that essentially linking the two models together, showing that the K model satisfies the assumptions that are made in the top level model, the Coq model, in addition to some properties relating to the state transition function. Yeah, there are still some other properties that I think still need to be proved, but we are working on those as well. So the point of this effort is to show that the beacon chain state transition function satisfies accountable safety and plausible liveness at that level. And then the ultimate goal is to be able to eventually show that the implementation itself satisfies these properties.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Masad.
so that's it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really exciting work. Seems like we're getting close.
Yep.
Cool. Other research updates?
For TXRX, we just had kind of maybe a realignment on some research. We're helping with ease with the or helping Quilt with the ease research, and that's an EE framework. And I think the general direction now is to move away from EEs as a design for Ethereum 2. It's not set in stone yet, but I think Johnny Ray is going to move into doing some sort of network monitor, and this would be helpful for phase 0, being able to monitor the activity of the network and have a better understanding of what's going on there. And Mikhail just published some research about an ETH1, ETH2 bridge finality gadget, and I think that his conclusions are coming closer to the conclusion that I think the foundation is already at. That is, a bridge or a finality gadget is length to finality makes it kind of like an infeasibility, and so I think we're going to shift into working on the ETH1, ETH2 merge more likely.
Cool. Thanks, Joe. Any other research updates?
So I've talked about this in the other calls before, but regarding polynomial commitments for state, there's been, and obviously that ETH research post that I published a couple of weeks ago, and then since then, Dankrat has come up with his scheme, and Alistair has come up with his scheme. And the thing that I presented yesterday at the ZK Study Club was basically some improvements to the version that I came up with that removed the need for a sorting argument until the number of constraints goes way down and the entire scheme becomes quite a bit more viable.
Cool. Rapid progress. Thank you. Other research updates? Great. Cool. The next item is multi-client testnet discussion. Largely, there's two efforts. The first of which is getting a multi-client testnet up, which we might see a few give birth and die and rebirth, and then also to do incentivized testnets. I think that the focus largely today will be on that first effort. Afri, do you want to talk about what you've been thinking, what you've been looking into, your thoughts here?
Yes, thank you for having me. This is my first Ethereum 2.0 call, so it's good to be here. I previously worked at Parity. For people who don't know me yet, Parity is no longer interested in Ethereum, so I have plenty of time now. And historically, I've been following Ethereum 2.0 since the early implementations of the hybrid Caspar proof of work, proof of stake in, I believe, Trinity, Harmony, and Parity. And we've come a long way. And now that Ethereum 2.0 spec is more and more stabilizing, and I still see the need that there needs to be some coordination. I stepped up to volunteer in cases is wanted to help out with multi-client testnets. And yeah, here I am now, and I want to learn more about how we as a Girly project can assist the client teams. We have resources available. I have plenty of time. I can help coordinating things. I used the last 2 weeks to investigate the client's capabilities, the tooling around creating testnets. What does it involve to create a testnet, and so on. And yeah, so yeah, as Paul already said, I mainly work with Lighthouse, but I also want to learn how all the other clients are capable of interoperability. I know there has been an interoperability or a multi-client testnet effort, I think, a couple of months ago. But we are now in a phase where we should work towards a more persistent version of multi-client testnets. And yeah, so I want to learn more about which version of the spec is implemented in which client, what's the status of networking, consensus, validating, syncing, what's the status of tooling around creating testnets for each of the clients, what else I'm not aware of. And yeah, this is all the things I want to learn more about. I'm Q9F on Discord, and we can spin this out into having separate calls on this. We can use separate Discord channels in cases, but yeah, any comments on that? I'm happy to learn more about what can be done, how we can contribute. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I was thinking you and I can maybe go back and forth on some of the core requirements and things that we're going to need to standardize, and then share that more broadly. We've done surveys in the past to kind of get a handle on where everyone is at, especially with respect to the core items. So we might do some sort of limited survey again. As for organization beyond this call, I think that's likely warranted. I think we're probably at least a couple weeks out, because I think everyone's a version that we'd like to target is pretty much the head of the spec today, and people are working to get there. As discussed on the networking call yesterday, some of the complexities, people are working through some of the complexities in this aggregation scheme. I think prior to very recently, we're kind of cutting corners there, but we expect people to be fully up to the spec very soon.
Yeah, I believe we need to also have a joint. At some point, we might want to have some strategy to freeze a certain version, but I don't know what you have done previously, and yeah, I'm happy to learn more about that.
Yeah, long ago, prior to DevCon, before we shook up the spec to make some deeper breaking changes based off of conversations there, we did have a spec freeze. I'd like to with this spec update, freeze the state transition logic. Unfortunately, also fortunately, we, at least in the past 2 weeks, have seen a lot of conversation around networking, primarily because some people are working through it for the first time and also hitting some of the pain points for the first time. So we've seen more iteration on that component of the spec, and some of these iterations have been breaking. So it'd be hard to, unless we were versioning protocols within the same protocol, it'd be hard to freeze that today. I think likely in the next 2 weeks we're still going to see some bumps on that. So state transition, freeze, and targeting soon a networking freeze. I don't have a good intuition on how many more changes we might see there, because a lot of it's just been led by the kind of networking experts on each team finding some of the issues. But I know we're getting to a better place there. Cool.
One other
Yep.
one other point which we may end up changing, and which I would like to see, if possible, change before we start doing testnets, is the new BLS specs and #code v6.
Did that v6 draft get released?
Yes, we have now a version
Okay.
v6 and a #code 2. So those are both released. I'm opening the second PR against PyACC as we speak. So from there we should be able to move fairly quickly. The changes are minor for clients, so I think I don't see a reason why we shouldn't do that before multi-client testnets.
Minor, we're talking, the interfaces are all the same for the client, but the underlying logic is a day of work, 3 days of work?
A day of work.
Okay.
Yeah, I would almost recommend reading the Python instead of the nothing's changed basically in in the BLS specs v2. Basically the old one's expired, so the update was just a version bump. And the #code things have changed. The #field mechanism has changed from HKDF to a sort of custom key extension, custom extension mechanism. So that's, yeah, that should be doable. And it was, I think, a day.
Okay, so I think what we'll do is this version we're releasing today, freeze state transition, have it be the tangible target, maybe release a version 12 when we have this breaking signature scheme come in, knowing that the rest of the items are stable. And as clients get up to speed, we can shift the effort towards that.
That seems reasonable.
Cool. Yeah, that's slipped my mind today. Good that they got the V6 out, and those contributors are saying stability, or did anything else come up in the pipeline?
Nothing new expected down the pipeline. I would still like to have seen, the only change I'd like to have seen is test vectors in the BLS specs document. But yeah, otherwise, it should be stable.
Gotcha. We talked a little bit about this, like on a recent blog post and in some of the chats. The intention here is to not allow the ITF standard to be the blocker on moving to mainnet, and so we will try to implement whatever the latest draft is, and ultimately probably try to shake hands with a couple of other blockchain projects that are also trying to move quickly and conform upon one of the drafts if they have not fully stabilized. But we'll play that by ear over the next couple of months. Right, so I think a lot of this conversation is probably going to be had on some different docs we'll be sharing, some different things that we'll try to standardize on, and increasingly so spinning up testnets, testing sync across clients, and things like that. Is there anything else Afri, that you want to talk about today, or is there any questions people have for just about this process, or thoughts or comments before we move on?
I mean, yeah, I have a lot of questions, but I will be going from channel to channel, from client to client, and poke the team. So please bear with me if I have a lot of questions. I just need to learn more about where each of the clients is and what the tooling status is and how our testnets can be spun up with each of the clients. And yeah, I will take this offline mainly. But if anyone has a comment now, just go ahead.
Thanks, Afri. And you know, I think it has been valuable to Lighthouse as Afri's been poking around and like having a dynamic conversation about this tooling. So help them out, and that will likely help you out too. Afri, are there others from the Gorley Initiative that are interested in this? Or are you flying solo right now?
I'm solo right now. I mean, the Gorley Initiative is just 3 people, and yeah, but we have some funding, and we have myself, and maybe in future we can even have staff bountied if necessary. We can see what's required or where some incentives are required.
We're going to move on. Anything else? Okay. We had a networking call yesterday. Ben has some great notes. There's a couple PRs that are up and under review based off of that. And we expect to get these in with the release today. Other items, networking items, concerns, comments, anything before we move on? And if somebody has a link to, yep, thanks, Ben. Ben's networking notes are in the chat. Networking, going once, going twice. Okay, spec discussion. We've touched on probably the most pressing items, which are that there are a couple of critical bug fixes that are coming out. Just keep your eye out on that, and I recommend just immediately bumping to that version instead of finishing out on V011. Honestly, because you're going to finish out on V011 and you're not going to be able to pass the test because the test generation is broken. Beyond that, on the phase 1 stuff, Xiaowei has been doing a deep review, and there's also been a number of additional test vectors added. So once that deep review is done, and we release, we'll hopefully release a version of the phase 1 test vectors and get 1 or 2 people prototyping. Some of this work is going to be pivotal for doing some of the Eth1, Eth2 integration prototyping work in the coming months. So I'd say once the Xiaowei fixes are integrated, if you have some spare time to do some reading and are just kind of interested in getting caught up, that would be a good time to check it out. Certainly, I think that's most of the spec stuff on our end. Do other people have any spec-related items that they'd like to discuss? General open discussion. I've been super pleased with the integration, kind of the unification of direction, roadmaps, and research and expertise. Super cool to see. So that's something that I've been excited about the past week. Anything else people want to talk about today?
Nothing from me.
Cool. Maybe we should do a virtual interop, meaning at least a few people from each team 1 week in the nearish future we spend a lot of our time hacking together on things rather than in our own little silos. Does that make sense? Is anybody interested in coordinating or in doing that? I know our efforts when we all got together in person were extremely fruitful. Obviously, there's a degree of separation when we're hanging out on the internet, but again, I think that might be fruitful.
I think it makes sense.
Cool. I'll chew on that and maybe propose some dates.
Cool.
Anything else? Cool. These calls are easy when everyone's heads down working on their items. So, great. Thank you. We'll likely do this call up, so I'm not certain if we'll do that in maybe 2 or 3 weeks, but I'll keep y'all updated. Otherwise, talk to y'all soon. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Danny.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.